Good morning, and welcome to another 10-minute tech tips brought to you by Community Library. When I first started doing these, my first one was the Google Drive and Google Docs. And Google Docs was meant to be the word processing program, the spreadsheet, and the PowerPoint type program. But it turned out that I could only get two of those in a half an hour. So today I thought we would touch on Google Sheets. Now I'm assuming that you remember or that you know how to get to your Google Drive account. Now normally if I were starting a new spreadsheet, I would click on New and then select Google Sheets. And then I would pick blank spreadsheet and then start from scratch. Since I want to speed this process up some, I have already decided that I will open up a spreadsheet that I created called Weekly Information Statistics. Now this is the completed spreadsheet, and by you can see that the buttons here at the top, file has you can open a new sheet, you can open an existing, you can import a sheet from your hard drive, you can email these sheets, you can download it, and when you download you have your choice. You can download it as an Excel spreadsheet or an open document format or a PDF. Edit works the same as it does in Docs. You have the undo, redo, cut, copy, paste. You can also delete objects within the spreadsheet in case you want to change something. View, you can have the grid lines in, that are the lines between the cells. You have the formula bar, which is up here. This is the formula bar. Anything that you type within a cell or any formulas that you create will show up here when you highlight the given cell. You can insert, you can put in a row above where your cursor or the cell that you've selected. You can put in a row below, you can add columns, you can add charts, or you can even put in images. And here is where you would select like functions, and they give you the most commonly used functions. You have sum, average, count, maximum, and minimum. In this spreadsheet I'm using sum and average probably the most. Format, you can add a theme. These are essentially pre-produced spreadsheets. From format, then you can also choose your number, the way numbers are displayed. You can add percent, and then you can have scientific notation if that's what you need. From format also you can put in bold type, italic, you can underline, you can strike through, and then you have the align functions. This shows it within the cell where the whatever you put in the cell will be displayed. Now I have selected left, and you can see that all my numbers here are on the left. So within the data you can also sort the sheet. you highlight the sheet, and then it will position them in order of either biggest to smallest or smallest to biggest, or if it's a text, it will sort it either alphabetically from A to Z or Z to A, depending on what your needs are. Tools, you can create a form, you can actually put in your own script, and you can create macros. If you have certain keystrokes that are always follow in succession, you can create a macro, and rather than entering each command or each click, you can create a macro, and with one click it will do all of the entries. You can check spelling, you can have autocomplete, and add-ons. These are actually scripts that people have created for Google, and they're for specific situations. I would suggest, if you are interested, go to Get Add-ons and then just browse through them, and you can see what kind of things they have created. Now, this sheet, my first cell, which is A1, was I select that, you'll see that it shows up here. This is these are added from tips that I get from a website or a blog type post that Now, this part that I've added, year progress, has absolutely nothing to do with the spreadsheet, but it was something that I picked up from a fellow that provides classes in using Google Sheets, and he has a weekly tech tip. If you go to Ben Collins, just do a Google search, you can sign up to receive his tips, and then you can use them or you cannot. Sometimes they get into doing formulas that are just way over my head, and this was one of them. It's simply a bar graph that shows how much of the year has gone by, and if I click on the cell with the bar graph, you can see that it's quite a lengthy formula, and it's not something I would ever have been able to write, so I simply copied and pasted and added it to my spreadsheet, and then right next to it, the 71.11%, that is the percentage of the year gone by, and this was the formula for how you would create that. And then I simply took in D1 and just put in the text is already gone. So when you read it, it's 71.11% is already gone. Now, the way our statistics are kept, we have by each shift, 9 to 12:30, 12:30 to 4, and 4 to 8. And we have to keep statistics on each shift. We also have to keep statistics for each day of the week. So at the end of the week, I can come in here, I can highlight these, and then I can just put in the numbers from our sheet at the desk, and then hit tab, and it will take me to the next shift, and then because I have these highlighted, it will also just jump right back to the first one of the next row. So I can just go through the sheet, put in on all the numbers. So once we have all the numbers in, then we want to have the totals per day. And to do that, I selected this cell, and then I used the function of sum, and then put in the range of the cells that I want to add together. In this case, B3, and then a colon, and then D3. So then it will take the sum of these three cells and show it in this F3 cell. Do the same for the next row. All the formulas, the way that Sheets recognizes them as formula, start with the equal sign. And then in this case, it's sum, D4, or B4 to D4. And then row 5, the same formula, only with different cells. And then until we get to Saturday. In addition to the daily totals, we also have to keep track of the shift totals, and that is the same process, only now instead of going horizontally, we're going vertically, and we're doing the same shift for each day. And when we click on that, you'll see the formula equals sum, and then I have B3, which is Monday, to B8, which is Saturday, and then that total is displayed in B10. Now we have the sum of the shifts at the bottom, we have the sum of the days on the vertical on the right, and then we have the total for those. Now, since these two columns should be equal, I can simply take the sum of B10 to B10 to D10, and then that gives us our weekly total. For my own, simply because I wanted to work with the sheet, I put in the average per shift, and that is simply, again, with the function of equals, and then I put average, and then we put in the range where we're going to average, which again is B4 in this case to D4. And then to show how each day, the percentage of each day's total, I put it into a percent form, and to do that I simply did equals F4, which is the total, and F10, which is the total for the week, and then used it, I selected in the format under number, I selected percent, and so it gives me the percentage of that day in relation to the total for the week. So Tuesday we had 23.48, Wednesday was 21, Thursday was 24, and then Friday and Saturday, Friday being 8% and Saturday being 21%. Now, if you're into statistics, you'd know that actually this is not totally accurate, because Friday and Saturday are missing the 4 to 8 shift. So actually it should be a weighted average, but unfortunately no matter what I've done or how I've tried to figure it out, it never comes out quite right, and I always end up with more than 100%. Of course, the percentage for, if you added up all of the percentages for the week, it should be at 100%. I also added the standard deviation. That's what all of this is about. This is the formulas that you need. Sorry, I was interrupted, and I quite frankly forgot where I was. I know I was talking about standard deviation within the daily total. I don't know if you know how you figure standard deviation, but this over here would be the long way of the creating the numbers that you need to create the standard deviation. But there is an easier way of doing it. Within the functions that are available, there is one for calculating standard deviation, and I selected it from the I selected it from the let's see, we want to use from the insert, we go to function, and then from here you can find standard deviation, probably under statistical. There, as you can see, there are a lot of pre-written formulas. The hardest part of using the formulas is knowing what to add after the function. So I'm keeping it very simple. So I used the equals. This is automatically put in when I selected automatic or standard deviation, and then I just have to give it the range of what I want the standard deviation created from. And in this case, it was from F3 to F8, and it comes out to 10.48. Now, again, this is not something that is actually very useful, simply because we have such a small sample size, and it would be much more enlightening if we were to keep each week's information and then use that to calculate standard deviation. That would be more statistically accurate. One of the other things I added, which is again thanks to Ben Collins, was this. It's just a line graph showing us the daily totals. And to do that, it's very simple. It's called a spark line. So we have the equal symbol, spark line, and then we select the range or the cells that we want to use to create that. In this case, I created a separate set of cells for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, which correspond to these. In fact, you can see if I click on this one, all I put in is equal F4, and it takes what is ever in F4, which in this case is 27, and puts it in this box. So I use this as my range for the totals I want to calculate, and then it automatically draws this line graph. The tricky part comes in, though, where it doesn't do you any good to know this point if you don't know which day it's supposed to be. I mean, theoretically, wherever there is a change in the angle, that should be on the day. So what I did was, on this cell, I simply put the initials for the days, and then I had to play with the spacing of them so that they would line up with the points on the graph. Now, the other thing that you can do with with spreadsheets is you can create bar graphs. So here's a bar graph that I created for the days of the week, and then each bar is represented taken from, again, the daily totals. And I did this. You can do the same thing with the as per shift. So each shift shows as a separate bar graph. One of the I don't if you've noticed, when I scroll up, you can see that the shift times and my number one row don't disappear as I scroll up. This dark gray line is the dividing point between those two parts. This is really handy if you have columns and you have multiple entries in the rows, and it allows you to scroll up. Come on. It allows you to scroll up or down, and you can, these are your headings will always be visible. So if you've scrolled down to row 50, you don't have to now this column, what did this column stand for? You don't have to worry about that because it's always visible. And the way that you do that is under, let's see, it's under View, and you'll at the very top there is this button to select Freeze, and you will freeze the rows that you want to have always visible. So I know there's a lot of information. The learning curve is, well, fairly steep, especially when it comes to formatting and creating functions. But when I run into trouble, I'll do a Google search for the problem that I'm having or what I want to accomplish, and I can pretty much guarantee you that you'll be able to find a website or a help video on YouTube that will address either the issue or what you're trying to accomplish.